Good morning everyone. So, we will continue whatever we have left in the last class. Now, we are discussing about the transient heat conduction in two dimensional polar coordinate. It is two dimensional in space and one dimensional in time. So, in essence it is a three dimensional problem, and the problem we are discussing, the governing equation of heat conduction is del u del T is 1 over r del r del u del r plus 1 over r square del square u del theta square. Now, again I would like to emphasize that u is basically a variable which will be defining temperature, and there will be some constant appearing here on the right hand side. There is the effective thermal diffusivity, and that will be absorbed in your time the varying part. So, I am not writing it as such in this equation. Now, we require one initial condition on time to solve this problem, two boundary conditions on r and two conditions on theta. The initial condition we have taken where u is equal to u0, which may be a function of r and theta, which may be a function of r alone, which may be a function of theta alone, which may be a constant. Now, all these functional forms will be predefined, that means they are prescribed functional form. Now, the boundary conditions we have selected where at r equal to 1, u is equal to 0, that means this implies that it is a constant temperature, world temperature boundary condition. R equal to 1 means is non dimensional. So, it is basically r equal to capital R, means on the surface of a tube. Okay. And the physical boundary condition is at r equal to 0, your u is finite. Okay. Now, boundary conditions on theta, again the boundary conditions on theta are not defined. We take recourse to physical boundary conditions that will be arising out of the physics of the system, that these are called the periodic boundary conditions on theta. Periodic boundary conditions, one will be at u at theta is equal to pi for any r and t is equal to u at theta is equal to minus pi, okay, and del u del theta at theta equal to pi is equal to del u del theta at theta is equal to minus pi. That means that temperature and gradient of temperature will be repeating itself over pi. Okay. So, now all the boundary conditions. So, basically you see that on theta the governing equation is a linear one, okay, and the boundary conditions are homogeneous on theta, right. So, and the boundary condition on r is also they are linear. So, we can define a standard eigenvalue problem in the theta direction, because the boundary conditions are homogeneous in that direction. Our whole solution will be constituted by the product of three solutions. One will be function of temperature alone, another will be function of r alone, another will be function of theta. So, my u will be basically r of r theta hat, that will be function of theta, and time varying part t, capital T. Now, you substitute this product in your governing equation and separate the variables. These are all there in your previous notes. Okay. So, you substitute this equation in the governing equation and separate the variables. So, whatever you will be getting is 1 over t dt is equal to 1 over r capital R d dr r dr plus 1 over r square d square theta hat d theta square with a theta hat in the denominator. Now, since our boundary conditions in theta direction are homogeneous, so we propose a standard eigenvalue problem in the theta direction. Okay. If you do so and collect all the other terms on the left hand side, it will be coming something like this: 1 over t dt dt minus 1 over r d dr of r dr is 1 over theta hat d square theta hat d theta square. Now, left hand side is a function of r and t alone, the right hand side is a function of theta, they will be equal to some constant, and that constant has to be 0, positive or negative. Now, if this constant is positive, you will be getting a trivial solution that you can check out. Okay. Now, if this constant is 0, then you will be finding a non-trivial solution. What is that? That theta hat comes out to be a constant. I think we have done all the derivations in the last class. So, theta will be, so 0 will be an eigenvalue of this system, unlike the previous cases, and constant, some constant, it will become an corresponding eigenfunction. Okay. Now, we have right. Now, the value will be, so positive value of the constant will give you a trivial solution that can be proved. So, I will give you as a home assignment, and you just check that out. Positive value of this constant will come out to be will be resulting into a trivial solution. So, this constant has to be negative, and we have found out if it is equal to minus alpha square, then it will be satisfying the boundary condition that theta hat is equal to theta hat evaluated at theta equal to pi and theta is equal to minus pi, as well as theta hat prime at pi should be is equal to theta hat prime at minus pi. By using both the conditions, you will be evaluating two constants of the solution of theta hat, and it will be coming, the eigenvalues will be coming out to be n, okay, where n runs from 1 to infinity. Eigenvalues becomes n, that means alpha n becomes n, where n runs from 1 to infinity, and the corresponding eigenfunctions will be a composite function of sine and cosine functions. Theta hat will becomes C3n sine n theta plus C4n cosine n theta. Now, in this case, if you see that if you put n equal to 0, then this sine function will be equal to 0 and this cosine function will be equal to 1, and again this will be a constant. So, we include the previous eigenvalue as well in this, in the same form, and say that n runs from 0, 1, 2 up to infinity. So, this solution includes both the cases, that is the constant is equal to 0 and the constant is negative. Okay. So, we are here in the last class, fine. Now, let us look into the radial variation and the time variation part. The r square 1 over t dt minus 1 over r d dr r dr, and this constant was equal to alpha n was n. So, it will be minus n square, right. Now, again you separate the variables, it becomes 1 over t dt is equal to 1 over r d dr r dr minus or plus n square r square is equal to minus lambda square. Is it plus now? Is okay, fine. So, again 0 and positive values will be giving you a trivial solution. So, it is minus. So, for a non-trivial solution it will be minus, fine. Now, let us look into the r varying part now in detail. This becomes
that will be equal to minus r square or minus lambda square or minus lambda square will be included in that part.
No, that will be, so will be equal to, this will be a function of time, this is a function of r. So, again that will be equal to some constant. If that constant is equal to 0 and positive, you will be getting a trivial solution. So, we put it as some negative. So, minus lambda square.
Means this lambda is different from that lambda. Yeah.
Which lambda? Previously it was alpha, and alpha was n. So, it was entirely different thing. Okay. So, that is it. Now, let us look into the radial varying part. r varying part, it becomes 1 over r d dr r dr minus n square by r square is equal to minus lambda square. Now, in the compact form it will becomes d dr r dr minus n square by r capital R plus lambda square r is equal to 0. Okay. Now, this equation is a standard equation. This is known as nth order Bessel function. Like the previous case, we had 0th order Bessel function. This equation is basically nth order Bessel function. In the previous case, n was equal to 0, right, and the solutions will be constituted by, instead of j0 y0, in this case it will be jn yn, and jn yn are all the Bessel function of the first kind and the second kind, and these are given in any standard textbook as in the form of a summation series, convergent summation series. That is important. Whenever a series is there as a solution, you have to test that whether that series is convergent or not. If it is a divergent series, that will not be giving you a true picture of the situation. Okay. Now, the boundary conditions should be satisfied by the boundary condition of the original problem, that is at r is equal to 0, your capital R is finite or bounded, both are same thing, and at r equal to 1, your capital R is equal to 0, right. So, the general solution is R as C1 j n lambda r plus C2 y n lambda r. We have not yet defined what is lambda. Will be getting the value of lambda from the boundary conditions. Okay. Now, at r equal to 0, your r is capital R is finite or bounded, that indicates that r equal to 0, the associated constant with y n is equal to 0, because the solution, the variation of y n is it is not defined at the center. Okay. So, y n goes unbounded at r equal to 0. That means, to get a bounded solution, you must be, because the condition is it is bounded or finite. So, the associated constant must be equal to 0. So, this boundary condition indicates that C2 is equal to 0. Okay. So, the solution becomes r is equal to C1 j n lambda r only. Right. Now, at r equal to 1, your capital R is equal to 0. That means, 0 is equal to C1 j n lambda. Okay. And to get a non-trivial solution, that means your C1 must not be equal to 0. That means, j n lambda will be equal to 0. Again, this is a transcendental solution, and if you plot j n versus lambda, it will be cutting the x axis at several in several places. That means, you will be getting infinite number of roots of this transcendental equation. Okay. So, this is a transcendental equation, SC transcendental equation, and it containing infinite number of roots, and let us call that the m is the j n lambda m n is equal to 0, where it is the mth eigenvalue. Lambda m n means mth eigenvalue. That means, m varies from 1 to infinity. The roots are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to infinite number of roots are present for a fixed n. For a fixed n. Okay. So, m runs from 1 to infinity for every n. It is a generic version of the variation j n. If it is j 1, it also it cuts the x axis infinite number of times. If it is j 3, it cuts x axis, or there will be infinite number of roots. like that. So, for every n you will be having infinite number of roots of this equation. So, these will be the eigenvalues. So, eigenvalues are basically roots of this equation. Okay. It's nothing but a transcendental equation. So, the corresponding eigenfunction we put it R m n, indicating both the subscript m and n, j n, lambda m n r. So, these are the eigenfunctions, corresponding eigenfunctions. And the corresponding time varying part will be nothing but some constant, let us say C t m n whatever, exponential minus lambda m n square times t. Okay. Now, you can construct the complete solution u r theta t as a double summation. One will be over index n, another will be over index m. Okay. And n runs from 0 to infinity and m runs from 1 to infinity. For every n, m will be running from 1 to infinity. Okay. So, this will be exponential minus lambda m n square t. Now, multiply all the constants. So, new constants will be emerging. So, let us say d m n sin n theta, okay, plus e m n cosine n theta, j n lambda m n r. So, this will be the complete solution, provided the evaluation of the constants d m n and e m n are left. That will be easily obtained by using the orthogonal properties of the sine functions and cosine functions, okay, as well as the orthogonal properties of Bessel functions. Bessel functions are orthogonal to each other with respect to the weight function r. Sine and cosine functions are orthogonal to each other with respect to weight function 1. So, using the orthogonal properties, I am not doing it real. That means, you have to multiply it both sides by sin m theta j n lambda m n r dr and d theta and integrate, double integrate. Okay. So, and after opening up the summation, only the sine containing terms will be, all the other terms will be off, and only sine square and cos square terms will be remaining. So, I am omitting couple of steps here. I am writing down the final solution, because we have done these things several times. Okay. So, finally, you will be using the orthogonal property, you will be getting d m n as double integral r 0 to 1 theta, domain of theta is minus pi to plus pi u 0 r theta. That means, you put the initial condition at t equal to 0, u is equal to u 0, r j n lambda m n r sin n theta dr d theta 0 to 1 minus pi to plus pi r j n square lambda m n r sin square n theta dr d theta, and E m n will be coming out to be 0 to 1 minus pi to plus pi u 0 r theta r j n lambda n r cosine n theta dr d theta 0 to 1 minus pi to plus pi r j n square lambda m n r cos square n theta dr d theta. Now, it depends on u 0. If u 0 is constant, you can evaluate these integrals analytically. If u 0 is a product of some function of r and some prescribed function of theta, let us say u 0 r theta is r theta. Suppose u 0 r theta is r theta, or let us say r square theta, or r square plus 1 into theta, something like that, then also these integrals can be evaluated analytically. If u0 is a complicated function of r and theta, these integrals have to be evaluated numerically using Simpson's rule or whatever. And numerical integrations are pretty simple. Use Simpson's rule or trapezoidal rule, that will be, you will be getting the solution very quickly. Okay. So, that completes the total formulation or solution of the 3-dimensional solution in a polar coordinate. Now, there is something called Hissler's charts available in your book. You can just look into any books, the Hissler's charts are available. What these charts say, they give the solution of transient conduction problem. Either in Cartesian coordinate or in polar coordinate. Okay. Now, they are basically some graphical representation of the solution whatever we have done in detail. Now, the solutions are something like this. The solutions whatever we have done, they have solved it numerically and presented in the graphical form only. Okay. Theta 0 tau, this is non-dimensional temperature. Okay, I will define all the I think the governing equation and how this theta etc. first, then I will go to the Hissler's charts. Now, for just take a consider conduction through a slab. Okay. At time t equal to 0, this slab was having a uniform temperature T I. Okay. T is equal to 0, your capital T was equal to T I. Now, at t greater than 0, these sides are open to atmosphere conditions. That means, the conduction as well as the convection conditions, that means mixed boundary conditions prevail at these surfaces. Okay. Let us say this is x equal to 0, this is x equal to L, this is x equal to minus L. Okay. So, the governing equation now our aim is to find out how temperature varies as a function of time and x in the slab. The governing equation will be 1 by alpha del t is equal to del square t del x square. Okay. The boundary condition will be, the initial condition will be at t equal to 0, my temperature was equal to T I, that was the initial condition. Okay. And you require two boundary conditions on x, both the boundaries are open to atmosphere. So, it will be basically mixed boundary condition at both the surfaces at x equal to L, x equal to minus L. At x equal to L, you will be having minus k del t del x is equal to h t minus t infinity. At x equal to minus L, you will be having k del t del x equal to h t minus t infinity. Okay. Now, considering the temperature distribution being symmetrical, these two boundary conditions, one of them, let us say x minus can be replaced as, if you define your x in between 0 to L, at x equal to 0, you can say del t del x is equal to 0. That means, t is assuming some finite value at x equal to 0. That means, t is assuming some value which will be more or less constant by symmetry. So, the derivative of that will be equal to 0. Okay. So, basically in the dimensionless form, theta is, let us say t, which is actual t x as a function of x and t, minus t infinity, t I minus t infinity. Let us say capital X we define as x by small l, Biot number we define as h L by k, and non-dimensional time is defined as alpha t by L square, and this tau non-dimensional time is known as the Fourier number. Now, using this non-dimensional variable, your governing equation can be made non-dimensional, and the non-dimensional form of the governing equation as well as the boundary conditions become non-dimensional form of governing equation becomes del theta del tau is equal to del square theta del x square subject to at x equal to 0 del theta del x is equal to 0, at x equal to 1 del theta del x plus b I theta is equal to 0, and at t equal to 0 what it will become? It will become 1, right, theta will be equal to 1. Now, we know the solution because we have done the solution in analytical form, and in the Hissler's charts this solution is solved analytically and they are given in the form of chart graphs, graphical representation. They have plotted theta 0 tau, that means the central line temperature, that is T 0. Central line temperature means at x equal to 0, that is the central line temperature. We consider it is finite, they said it is the value, it will be having a value T 0. Okay, T 0 minus T infinity by T I minus T infinity. T 0 is the temperature at x is equal to 0 versus tau, that is alpha t by L square. These will be having this is in the logarithmic scale and this will be in the normal scale, and the responses look something like this over various values of Biot number. Biot number is close to 0, that is very small, and Biot number is very large here. Okay. So, it is basically a log plot, and if you suppose you would like to find out what will be the temperature at any particular x and time location, for that you have to first find out the central line temperature at that particular time. Suppose I would like to find out temperature at if these boundary conditions prevail, that is one of the point. If these boundary conditions prevail, then our aim is to find out, let us say theta as a point at time is equal to tau naught, and let us say at a location x naught. Suppose that is our aim. So, we know what is tau naught, we go back to this, H etcetera all known. So, Biot number will be known, conductivity and length etcetera all known. So, you go to the that particular Biot number curve and read the value of theta, that will give you the central line temperature, because T I is known, T infinity is known, that is the ambient temperature. Okay. So, the first step will be estimate T naught by reading this graph. Okay. Then they have given the position correction, because this is at what location, this temperature is a central line x equal to 0. Now, our aim is to find out some x equal to something, let us say x naught. So, there is another corresponding another curve is there, that is known as the position correction curve. This is t minus t infinity divided by t 0 minus t infinity for different inverse of Biot number they have plotted, and this starts let us say very small value 0.01 to let us say 100. Again it is a semi log plot. Then this is x equal to x by L equal to 0, and then you will be getting several solutions. Okay, solutions will look something like this, and this will be x by L, this will be x by L equal to 1. So, you have already found out what is T naught. At whatever x location, you have to go back to that particular curve x by L. Biot number is known. So, you know the x axis, you go back to this curve and read this value. Okay, read the ordinate, and you will be getting the value of T at that location, because the central line temperature is already known from the previous calculation. BI is known to you. So, you know the x axis, you know which x by L location you are talking about. So, you go back to that curve, read the value. But remember, these curves will be you cannot use the same curve for different physical situation. Like the curve I am talking about, it is at x equal to 0, the condition is basically a del theta del x type of condition, which is a Neumann boundary condition, and at x equal to 1, it is a mixed boundary condition. So, for all possible boundary conditions, like if it is theta equal to 0, theta equal to let us say theta 1 or theta equal to 0, that means a constant wall temperature there, and it is a mixed boundary condition here, then you will be having a separate set of curves, because solution will be different, that we have already seen. If let us say at x equal to 0, theta is equal to 0, and at x equal to 1, it is a insulated boundary condition, that means del theta del x equal to 0, then again you will be having a separate set of curves. So, you have to identify the appropriate curve and read properly, that will be the trick. Otherwise, alternative, this is an old method, these charts are known as the Hissler charts. These are available in the rectangular coordinate, these are available in the polar coordinate, in r theta coordinate, r theta t. Okay. So, you can directly go back to the chart, but you have to identify which chart you are going to use depending on the actual physical boundary condition on your system. Now, these charts do not include if you have some kind of non-homogeneity in your boundary conditions. All these charts are available for the homogeneous boundary conditions. If your boundary conditions are homogeneous, let us say del theta del x plus Biot times theta is equal to 0, or let us say theta equal to 0, del theta del x equal to 0, or let us say theta equal to del theta del x equal to 0 and theta equal to 0, whatever. If you are dealing with the homogeneous boundary conditions, then these Hissler charts are available in the textbook. But for the non-homogeneous boundary conditions, which can be very well happening in your case, those are not available. So, you cannot use Hissler charts in those cases. So, my suggestion is do not use Hissler charts at all. There is absolutely no point. This is an old method. Okay. So, if you know the solution correctly, because that will give you the analytical solution gives you the correct solution, exact solution, that is called exact solution. So, use that, you know the method how to solve these problems, okay. Derive, get the solution. Let us say finally, maybe you may be taking a numerical solution because of the summation series, or can be done by a programmable calculator as well. You have to take first few 3 or 4 terms in the summation instead of taking infinite terms. Okay. So, I am not going in detail about the Hissler charts, but you should know what the Hissler charts are and how to utilize them. Okay. Now, till now whatever we have done, we have talked about solution of homogeneous linear governing equations with homogeneous or non-homogeneous boundary conditions, homogeneous and of course linear and or linear boundary conditions, right. Now, sometimes boundary conditions may be homogeneous or non-homogeneous. So, you know how to tackle the non-homogeneity in the boundary condition. Your governing equation may not be homogeneous. I will give you an example. Suppose it is a reactive system, some heat is being generated, Okay. So, there will be a generation term. If you look into the heat conservation equation, or let us say that is not the correct term, energy conservation equation. First term will be the transient term, rho Cp del T del T, then you will be having the convective terms, in case of pure conduction, these convective terms will be equal to 0. Whatever we have done till now will be pure basically conduction problems, okay. Convective terms are not there, is equal to your conductive terms, that means k del square T del x square sort of things, plus energy generation rate of energy generation or dissipation terms. Till now we have considered there is no convection present, there is no energy generation or dissipation present. Now, so this is basically the overall any equation, not necessarily the energy equation. The same equation will be holding good for say mass conservation or species conservation. Okay, in that case, there will be transient term, there will be convective terms. There will be instead of conductive term, we will be having diffusive terms, d del square c del x square, plus generation or dissipation terms. Suppose it is a reactive system, we are talking of the species balance of a reactant, then you will be having a minus sign here. Okay, that species being dissipated. If you are writing a species balance for a product, then this will be a positive term. Similarly, suppose we are talking about the energy conservation for a nuclear fuel element. In a nuclear fuel element, what is being done is that neutrons are being constantly bombarded by something called positioning rod. Positioning rod is basically aiming the neutrons to bombard the radioactive materials here, uranium. Okay. So, it initiates the fission reaction. So, fission reaction initiated and the amount of energy that is generated, that will be occurring throughout the whole volume, because you cannot pinpoint a particular x location or radial location to initiate the fission reaction. Once the fission reaction gets initiated, it gets spread, it spreads out, and throughout the whole volume the energy is being generated, and that energy is being conducted away and being carried out by the coolant liquid, typically liquid metals, to be carried away to run the full cycle. Now, there will be a rate of energy term that will be present in case of where you will be having a energy generating system like this one. So, there will be, so this will be, and all these conservation equations are applicable for the full volume. Boundary conditions are applicable for the boundaries, that means surfaces. The differential equation is applicable throughout the whole volume of the system. All these terms are per unit volume. Okay. So, this term must be a function of x as well as t, or it may be a function of x, or it may be a function of time. It should not be a function of time alone, it should be a function of x, or it may be a function of x and t both. If it is a function of x, in general it is a function of x, then this indicates that, so what is the form of the governing equation of the energy balance. In that case, we will be having rho Cp del T is equal to, suppose we are talking about the nuclear fuel element where is no convection is present. So, convective terms are not present, k del square T del x square, let us say, plus q dot, which will be a function of x, some prescribed functional form may be. This leads to non-homogeneity in your system, right. So, this equation, this governing equation is non-homogeneous. Non-homogeneous governing equation. Now, we have not talked about the solution of this equation. If you remember, we have talked about the homogeneous governing equation in all the cases with homogeneous or non-homogeneous boundary conditions. Now, again you can do a separation of, it is not exactly separation of variable, it is called Green's function solution. Using Green's function, you can get a solution of this. Now, if I have some certain classes after Puja recess, I will be taking some of the lectures on how to solve these non-homogeneous governing equations. Okay. Now, I will move forward to another direction. Suppose this equation is non-linear. Okay. First problem we will be doing non-linear equations, right. If your governing equation is linear, then you have to use separation of variable, or you can use Laplace transform, which is semi-infinite plane. If your governing equation is not linear, you should not think about solution in terms of separation of variable. Okay, that will be the first check. Now, suppose under certain condition, you will be getting one of the boundary conditions at infinity, right. That is quite possible. I will give you an example. Suppose there is a plate here and a stagnant fluid is being is there initially at t equal to 0, it was stationary. There is a fluid, let us say water, is stationary, and there is a plate here. Now, at time t equal to 0 delta, 0 plus delta, this plate starts moving in the positive x axis along positive x axis with a constant with a uniform velocity u 0. Now, what it does? The fluid element closest to the surface will be having the same velocity because of the no slip boundary condition. Due to the presence of viscous forces, the velocity of the above layer will be decreasing, at some distance the velocity of the fluid element will be equal to 0. So, you will be getting a velocity profile something like this along the y axis. So, this type of scenario, this may be, let us say you can consider this boundary condition as infinity, you can consider this boundary condition as delta. Delta is basically this thickness, where delta is basically a region where the velocity profile exists. Beyond delta, velocity profile does not exist, because velocity is uniform there. Uniform means it was stationary, u is equal to 0. Whenever there is a velocity profile existing, it is called a boundary layer. Have you been taught about the boundary layer? Okay. So, it is basically boundary layer sort of thing. Now, to define this problem, there is only one difficulty in defining the boundary condition, that is the boundary condition residing at this point. What is this delta? Because it is unknown to you, right. So, to ease away the mathematics, or to do away with the difficulty that we will be facing about this boundary condition, often this boundary condition is replaced by the boundary condition at y equal to infinity. That means, if you look into the system, this delta will be really very small. This is a typical boundary layer effect, and this will be having a very small value. Now, if you are sitting here, it is as if you are sitting at the infinity compared to this height. Okay, are you getting my point? Because whenever you will be solving an equation, your boundary condition should be known to you, but actual boundary condition should be at y equal to delta, u should be equal to V x should be equal to 0, but you do not know what is the value of delta. So, again that is a point of unknown quantity, right. So, you cannot get the full solution, because delta is unknown to you. So, it is better to replace by del delta by y equal to infinity. Now, if you look the profile of velocity at different points of time, suppose it is a transient problem, okay, at different points of time, this profile looks the shape of this profile becomes similar at different points of time. These profiles are known as self-similar profiles. Okay. And there is a method called similarity solution or similarity method, by which you can solve this problem analytically. Analytically means you will be getting a concrete solution in front of your eyes. Okay. Now, you cannot, there are two thumb rules whether a problem will be admitting a similarity solution or not. The thumb rules are: first one is the partial differential equation, the governing equation must be a parabolic partial differential equation. Okay. How to know it is a parabolic partial differential equation? Right, b square minus a should be equal to 0 if it is a 2 variable problem. If it is a 3 variable problem, how to know the parabolic equation? Suppose it's t, x and y, all the independent dimensions are involved. So, it will be a 3 variable problem, 3 dimensional problem. Now, in that case there is a method, that means you take all the terms on the left hand side which will be containing double derivative, okay, like utt, like a utt plus b uxx plus c uyy, u may be some independent variable, dependent variable, plus let us say d utx e ux y, something like that. Okay. So, and the right hand side should be containing all the single variable and non-homogeneous terms. Now, you have to form a coefficient matrix of this equation. Okay. Now, you have to find out the eigenvalues of that coefficient matrix. If one of the eigenvalues becomes 0, then the equation is parabolic. Okay. If all the eigenvalues will be having same sign, the equation is elliptic. If eigenvalues are having positive and negative both, then the equation is hyperbolic.
So, when is parabolic?
You have to formulate a coefficient matrix of all these double derivative terms. Okay. Then if all eigenvalues, all lambdas are positive or all are negative, means they are of the same sign, then it is a elliptical. If one of the eigenvalues is 1 of lambda is equal to 0, then it is parabolic. And if lambdas are positive, negative both, some of them are positive, one of them is negative maybe, then it is hyperbolic partial differential equation. But whatever we are doing in this course, all these are basically 2 variable problem, t and x, t and y mainly. So, in that case you just check b square minus ac whether it is 0 or not. Okay. So, thumb rule for similarity solution is the governing equation should be a parabolic partial differential equation, and secondly, one of the boundary condition must be residing at infinity. If these two conditions are satisfied, then you may get a similarity solution, may not get a similarity solution, that is not guaranteed. But if you have a similarity solution, then these two conditions must be satisfied. That means they are necessary, but they are not sufficient. If so basically these are called the, that is why these are called the thumb rules, not actual rules. If these two conditions are satisfied, then only you will be getting a similarity solution. But that does not guarantee you a similarity solution, but if you have a similarity solution, these two conditions must be present. In other words, if you have a elliptical or some hyperbolic partial differential equations, you should not think about similarity solution, that is ruled out. If you have a parabolic partial differential equation, but boundary condition is not at infinity, at least one of them, you should not think about similarity solution. If these two conditions are satisfied simultaneously, then you can think about similarity solution, whether it will exist or not, that is not guaranteed. Okay. So, I will be giving an example of a similarity solution of a partial differential equation that is occurring in fluid mechanics, that is known as the Stokes' first problem. This is a transient problem. It is basically the example we are discussing, that it is a plate, there is a stationary water there, at time t equal to 0, this plate starts moving in the x direction and this let us say y direction with a constant velocity, let us say u0, and the fluid particles will be retarding as you go away from y axis, and at a certain point that will be assuming the velocity of the free stream velocity, that will be 0 velocity. Now, you just so viscous forces are present. So, to attempt this problem, as we have discussed previously also, you have to write down the equation of continuity. First, you have to write down all the assumptions involved. Let us jot down the assumptions. first assumption is constant viscosity and it is incompressible fluid, it is liquid. So, it is incompressible, that means rho is constant. Secondly, velocity in y direction is 0, that means V y is equal to 0. It is basically, it is known as the Couette flow, right. It is Couette flow. The flow is induced here only in the x direction because of the movement of the wall in the x direction only. Thirdly, there is no pressure gradient. Since it is Couette flow, there is no pressure gradient. The fluid can flow from station 1 to station 2 because of the two reasons. One is, if the upstream pressure is higher compared to downstream pressure, then the fluid elements will be moved from 1 to 2, or if one of the walls, or there is a relative motion between the walls, top and top plate or bottom plate, whatever, then the fluid will be moving, or in presence of both. If both are present, the fluid will move obviously. Okay. Z dimension is too long, right. That means V z equal to 0, all the variations of the dependent variable in the z direction will be negligible, del z of any quantity will be equal to 0. These are the assumptions. Okay. Now, you write down the so what will be the first step in these problems? The first step, as we stated earlier, you write down the equation of continuity, you write down the equation of motion in all the directions. Del rho del t plus del x of rho v x plus del y of rho v y plus del z of rho v z is equal to 0. Now, this term will be off because this is a transient problem, but this term will be off because the fluid is incompressible, rho constant, and typically for most of the liquids the fluid is incompressible. Now, rho will be taken out because it is constant. So, it will become del V x del x plus del V y del y plus del V z del z is equal to 0. Okay. Because the constant assumption V y will be equal to 0, this term will be off, del V z del z will be off because V z equal to 0 or either del z equal to 0. So, you will be getting del V x del x is equal to 0. That means, the x component velocity will not be a function of x, but in general it will be a function of y and t and z as well, but since z dimension is too long, there is no variation in the z direction. So, definitely V x will be function of y and t. So, it is basically a two dimensional problem, right. It will be a two dimensional problem, and you have to, and what will be the governing equation looks like, that you have to get once you write down the x component, y component and z component equation of motion. Okay. So, we will be continuing this problem in the next class and solve this problem using similarity solution. Thank you. Good morning everyone, and welcome back from your puja recess. Now, before if you remember that previously in last few classes we have discussed in general two variable problem in transport processes, either in heat conduction or fluid flow, or same thing can be applied to the mass transfer as well. Now, these types of problems are generally categorized of two types. One is whether it is a transient problem. Number one is transient problem, number two the problems are steady state problems. In transient problem we have discussed mainly one dimension is time, other dimension is space. It may be one dimension in time and one dimension in space, or one dimension in time and two dimensions in space. So, we treated two variable two dimensional problems, three dimensional problems as well. In second category, the problems are not transient, they are steady state problems, but the dependent variable, whether it is temperature, concentration or velocity, they are varying as a function of space in multi-dimension, like velocity is a function of x, y, z, temperature is a function of x, y, z, not t. So, in general we have treated the multi-dimensional problems and in this class mainly we have discussed the analytical routes how to solve these problems. The first analytical route that we have taken recourse to is separation of variables. Okay. Now, the separation of variables are of several types, and if you remember that if your governing equation is a linear partial differential equation, you can use separation of variable provided the boundary conditions become homogeneous. That means, in separation of variable can be applied to the problems where the governing equation is linear and your boundary conditions are linear and homogeneous. That does not mean you cannot apply separation of variable to the problems which have the boundary conditions which are non-homogeneous. Order of magnitude, in real magnitude they may be one may be 1, another may be 1.7, but let us say 10 to the minus 2 in both the cases.
But then we take square of the other, no?
It is not really square, it is again a difference. No, it is again a difference. If you ever do numerical differentiation, you will really then you can realize this thing. It will be remaining still a difference. In this case, it may be 2 minus 1. In this case, it may be 1 minus 0.7. Okay. The delta square Vx will be really a difference. If you do a numerical differentiation, then you can realize only. Okay. So, delta will be roughly equal to nu t. Okay. Now, the similarity parameter in all these cases is defined as y by delta. This is the definition of similarity parameter. Y by delta. Y is at any y location and delta is the corresponding value of boundary layer thickness at that point, which will be in turn a function of time. Delta will be in turn a function of time. What is the functional variation? Delta equal to under root nu t in this case. Okay. So, similarity parameter is becomes y by root over nu t. Now, you can look into the dimension of the similarity parameter, it is dimensionless, okay, this is unit free. Y is in meter, under root, this is meter square per second, nu is kinematic viscosity meter square per second, this is second, so it will be unit free number. So, that means we can express our partial derivatives in terms of this total derivatives eta. Now, what is the governing equation? Del Vx del t. Now, in the next step you express. So, once you derive the similarity parameter, you express your partial derivatives. In terms of eta, only one variable, there is a combined variable. Okay. So, what is that? Del Vx del t is del Vx del eta del t, right? And we are assuming that Vx will be a sole function of eta. So, this partial derivative will become a total derivative.